On Christmas Eve, my daughter kicked me out of the table and sent me to sleep in the garage. She gave me my shabby coat and said, "Mom, you better go away." Her husband's voice, cheerful from drinking, came from the dining room. "Why do we need this old woman here? Let her celebrate in the garage." The door clicked behind me as if I wasn't there. The cold penetrated through my slippers and seeped to my knees. I stood between dusty boxes and a mattress that lay on the floor. From behind the walls in the living room, I heard the laughter of my daughter and her husband, the clink of glasses, and the smell of meat that was almost done in the oven. I was so upset, tears were accumulating in my eyes, and a lump was rising in my throat. I kept thinking over and over in my head, wait, why? Why are they doing this to me? I had decided to go to the front door. I knocked once. "Mom, just for an hour," my daughter called through the door. "Please don't make a scene today." "Of course, honey," I said, and my heart sank. Glasses clinked. "To new traditions," my son-in-law thundered. "To peace," she added in that solicitous tone people use when they want peace. I ran my hand through my coat pocket and found the mint I keep for my granddaughter. And last week she had whispered, "Grandma, Mom is stressed. Dad says you're making things worse." I told her to take it easy and everything would work out, but I knew what was happening. And a shadow flickered across the window. My granddaughter's face appeared, fogging the glass. She held up 2 fingers in our quiet gesture, and a moment later slipped out into the street, flushed from the heat. "I brought you a muffin," she said, shoving a paper plate into my hands. "Mom said you weren't hungry, but I wanted you to eat." "Thank you, honey. Come back inside." "Are you mad?" "Not at you," I said, and kissed her hair. She nodded the serious nod of a child keeping a secret and scurried back. The silence returned, clearer than any hymn. I pulled out the folding chair by the water heater and sat up straight. How could my daughter decide that her mother was trash that needed to be put out of sight? When had I become a problem instead of a welcome guest? The calm came, as it always does for me, like the sigh before a knot gives way to a needle. They didn't know what I documented that month. The messages left on speakerphone, the just until we sell notes, the numbers that didn't add up when I balanced the checkbook alone. They didn't know who I'd already talked to or what I'd wrapped under the tree for them that wasn't from the store. I'd listened to their toasts and carols and waited, patient as frost. But to understand how a mother ends up in her child's garage on Christmas and what I decided to do about it, I have to go back to the beginning. It started, as these things often do, with help. In September, when the heat kept hanging on like a guest who couldn't take a hint, my daughter, Mara, arrived with a grocery sack and a soft voice. "You shouldn't be up on step stools," she said, reaching for the top shelf where I keep the good vases. "I can reorganize a bit." I let her stack the mixing bowls by size and move the sugar to a lower cabinet. I had a bruise on my hip from a careless swivel in the pantry. The purple was dramatic. The ache was not. When I said I'd bike to church that morning, she pressed her lips together the way her father used to when he heard a lie he didn't think he could correct. "We worry," she said. "It's not judgment, Mom. It's logistics." Her husband, Kent, arrived an hour later with paints for their new nursery and the smile of a man who likes a good spreadsheet. "We're thinking ahead," he said, tapping the calendar on his phone like it was a crystal ball. "Winter's coming. Slips, falls, pipes bursting. We can help manage things." "Manage?" I asked, wiping the rim of my teacup and keeping my voice gentle. "I've managed this house for 42 years. "Exactly," he said, as if agreeing. "Time for a break." By October, they had a key I didn't remember giving them. Mara texted, stopping by to check the smoke detectors. And then her messages shifted into, "We changed out the doormat, it was a tripping hazard, and I moved your medications to a weekly organizer. It's simpler." I hadn't asked. I hadn't declined either. Somewhere between the grocery sacks and the reorganizing, the ground shifted a hair. You don't notice a rug slipping until you reach for the counter and find air. The first real tremor came when a letter arrived addressed to Estate of Evelyn Hart. That's me, though I was clearly lively enough to open mail. I took the letter to my neighbor, Anita, a retired paralegal, who fills her afternoons with crosswords and peppermint tea. She adjusted her reading glasses and clicked her tongue. "Not an estate notice," she said. "Just an offer. They scrape public records for older homeowners, vultures by mail." Anita looked at my face and added, "You should make sure your title is clean, Evie. You and Harold set up a trust?" Harold has been gone 8 years. I still call the back bedroom his office because I haven't found a better word. We talked about it, and Ed, we were more sentimental than clever. "Get clever," Anita said, and slid me a card. "Elder law, solid reputation. Go speak to her while it's still your idea." I scheduled a consultation the same day without telling Mara. The attorney, a compact woman named Layla with silver at her temples and the calm of someone who reads chaos for a living, listened while I explained that my daughter loved me, I believed that, and also my daughter was sweeping me into a chute called help. "Love and control can coexist," Layla said. "They often do. Tell me what you want." "I want to stay in my house," I said. "I want my bank accounts in my hands. I want a plan in case I can't be heard later." Layla nodded. "We'll create a living trust and a durable power of attorney that only activates if 2 physicians certify incapacity. You choose the physicians. We outline your wishes in a directive that no one can reinterpret. We file today." We did. I left her office with a folder that felt like armor. 2 weeks later, Mara arrived with soup and a stack of forms she found on the internet. "It's just a standard power of attorney," she said, sliding a pen toward me. "We're pre-filling it to save you time." I had already signed with Layla. I already had the trust, the backup physicians, and a new safe deposit box that held Harold's watch and my original deed. I touched the pen, thanked my daughter, and said I'd think about it. That night, my bank called. "Mrs. Hart," the manager said, "I see a request to add an authorized user to your checking account. Is that your wish?" "No," I said, and felt the click of a piece sliding into place. "Please put a note that no changes occur without my in-person consent with ID." "Of course," he said. "We're here for you." I baked muffins the next morning and took 6 to the branch. People remember faces that bring butter and cinnamon. The manager, a soft-spoken man named Ramesh, walked me through alerts I could set up. "If anyone tries something again," he said, "you'll know before I do." November brought the first snow and a new tone in Mara's voice. "You forgot the dentist on Tuesday," she said on the phone. "I rescheduled," I said. "The roads were ice." "You didn't tell me," she said. And there it was, a possessive slice I had not heard since she was 13 and someone borrowed her sweater. "I don't need to report my appointments," I said. I kept my voice calm because the calm was for me. She sighed. "You're making it harder than it needs to be." That week, I found my jewelry drawer organized. A brooch was missing, the tiny gold hummingbird Harold gave me when our son was born. "I don't wear it," I told the empty air. I still stood alone in the kitchen and placed my hand against the refrigerator like a brace. I called Anita. "Do you have a camera you're not using?" Anita did better. Her nephew installs home security systems for a living and came by that afternoon. We put a motion-activated camera over the back door and another disguised as a clock in the hall. I felt disloyal and safer in a single breath. The videos uploaded to the cloud into a hard drive Anita kept in her freezer. She calls it her icebox archive. The camera saw things my eyes had begun to gloss over. Mara entered when she thought I was at morning exercise and moved checks from the front of the book to the back. Kent used my garage code and carried out a box labeled donations that held framed photos wrapped in towels. Nothing catastrophic, nothing you'd call the police about and not feel foolish. Enough to make you feel like the surface under your feet is slippery by design. Layla advised me to document, not confront. "People who believe they are doing the right thing become righteous when challenged," she said. "Righteousness clouds judgment and reveals arrogance. We want that." So I collected. I printed text messages. I saved bank alerts. I wrote dates in a notebook with a red pen. When I found a notice of an appointment I had not made with a physician I had not chosen, I added 2 underlines. The appointment was for a cognitive evaluation the day after Thanksgiving. I went. The doctor's office was painted the friendly beige of waiting rooms that want to be invisible. The receptionist smiled with all her teeth. "Forms, Mrs. Hart?" she asked. She looked past me to Mara. Family can stay in the lobby. Mara squeezed my shoulder. Call me if you need me, she said, too loud, like the room should be taking notes. Inside, the doctor asked me to draw a clock, remember 3 words, subtract serial 7s. I've done harder work in the garden. I did as asked, smiling to myself, and then I did one thing more. When he asked if I ever get confused, I told him the truth. Sometimes when I am tired, I walk into the kitchen and forget why I am there. Then I look at the sink and remember there's always something to wash. He smiled and checked a box I could not see. He was kind, and also his card appeared in Kent's wallet weeks earlier when Kent handed me cash for groceries. Layla had trained me to observe. The doctor was a friend of a friend, a man who played golf with Kent's boss. The report arrived in the mail a week later. Mild cognitive impairment, it read, and recommended consideration of shared financial responsibility. It did not say incapacity. It did not say guardianship. It said what Mara and Kent needed. Fog, not thunder. I took the report to Layla. She read it, pursed her lips, and placed it in a folder labeled Weather. What now? I asked. Now we let them feel confident, she said, and we make our move on our terms. December slid in with lights and carols, and that particular weight families carry into holidays, the weight of performance. Mara asked if I would come to their house for Christmas Eve. Low-key, just us. I said yes, because my granddaughter's eyes widen at candlelight and because some battles are won by showing up. Before I left my house that afternoon, I stopped by the bank. Ramesh walked me into his office and closed the door. It happened, he said, turning his screen so I could see. Someone attempted an online transfer from your savings to an account ending in 5342. Is that Mara's? I asked. It belongs to a joint venture account in Kent's name, he said, voice careful. We blocked it and flagged it. I'm obligated to ask if you want to file a fraud report. I do, I said. But can we time it? Ramesh is a man who appreciates choreography. The system posts notices at midnight, he said. If we input now, the account will be frozen by morning. Do it, I said. And could you print me the attempt details? He did better. He placed the printouts in a red envelope and tucked it into a small gift bag that said Joy. I stopped at Anita's on the way home. She handed me a flash drive from the freezer and smiled without showing teeth. Your Christmas star, she said. When I arrived at Mara's house, the tree already glowed in the front window. I tucked my coat into the closet and set 2 carefully wrapped boxes under the branches. One was light and held paper. The other was heavier and held a small, sympathetic weight. The evening moved on its tracks. Carols, appetizer bites that tasted like energy disguised as food, my granddaughter's recital of a poem she learned in school. Kent's laugh rose a notch with each refill. He has that aggressive cheer some men wear, like cologne. At dinner, he raised his glass again. To new traditions, he said. Streamlined holidays, less fuss. Less fuss? Mara echoed. Less stress? She looked at me like she had said something lovely. You know what happened next? The door, the coat, the garage, the peppermint, the roll tucked into my pocket. Like evidence. I waited until the alarms of my body quieted and the breath came steady. Then I reached into my other pocket and wrapped my fingers around the key fob Anita's nephew had given me. A small, polite button labeled Call. It didn't notify the police. It texted 3 people in my circle, Anita, Layla, and Ramesh. The message was simple. Now. The first knock came 10 minutes later. Not on the garage door, on the front door. Through the thin wall, I heard Kent's voice, irritated at being interrupted. Footsteps. Then the lower register he uses when he wants to sound like authority. Can I help you? Layla's voice carries like a string pulled taut. Merry Christmas, she said evenly. I'm Layla Moran, counsel for Evelyn Hart. These are documents you are required to receive. I don't think this is appropriate, Kent said with that false laugh men use when they want witnesses. Appropriate, Layla said, is an elastic word. Mara's voice entered, brittle. What is this? 2 things, Layla said. First, A notice of a temporary restraining order prohibiting you from accessing Mrs. Hart's residence or financial accounts without her written consent. Second, a complaint for attempted financial exploitation with exhibits. Silence. Then the paper sound of a hand grabbing too firmly. "You can't be serious," Kent said. "The bank flagged a transfer," Ramesh's voice added. He has the tone people choose when they wish they were home with their families. "I am obliged to inform you that the joint venture account, ending in 5342, is frozen pending investigation." "You came to my house on Christmas Eve Kent began. "To prevent further harm," Layla said, "and to give you an opportunity to refrain from making this worse." I opened the garage door then. I stepped into the kitchen with my coat still on and my hair pressed flat by the cold. My granddaughter on the stairs looked like a winter bird ready to startle. Mara's face was colorless. Kent's ears had gone red in patches. "Mom," Mara said, the word tumbling out, "why didn't you just talk to us?" "I did," I said. "You called it fuss. You called it stress. You put me in the garage." Layla handed me a folder. "Evelyn, I'm sorry to intrude on your evening. The judge approved the temporary order an hour ago. We'll have a hearing next week." Kent tried to square his shoulders. "We were protecting her," he said, jabbing a finger toward me. "She's confused half the time. She forgot the dentist. She mixed up sugar and salt." I held up the red envelope. "Your transfer didn't confuse me," I said. "Neither did the checkbook you rearranged or the evaluation you scheduled with your golfing friend." Layla slid a USB drive across the counter. "This contains video from Mrs. Hart's hall camera and audio from speakerphone messages," she said. "Your voices are clear. The timestamps match bank alerts." Mara's hands shook just enough to make the paper whisper. "Kent," she said without looking at him, "you told me the transfer was hypothetical." "It was a test," he said, louder, "to see if the bank would allow it." "Attempted is still attempted," Ramesh said quietly, "and flagged is still flagged." My granddaughter took a step down the stairs, one hand on the banister. "Mama?" she asked. "Upstairs, sweetheart," Mara said, voice breaking on the last syllable. "Go brush your teeth." The little feet retreated. The house seemed to exhale. "I'm not pressing criminal charges," I said, and saw Layla's eyebrow lift a fraction. "Not tonight," Kent scoffed. "Because you can't prove—" "Because I want my granddaughter to wake up to stockings and a tree," I said. "But I will not be in your house when you figure out that attempted can cost jobs and friends. So I'm leaving." Mara stepped toward me then, a reflex older than her marriage. "Where will you go?" "To the place you said I couldn't manage without you," I said. "Home." Layla nodded toward the door. "A car is waiting," she said. "Anita is there. We'll escort you." Kent laughed without warmth. "This is melodrama." "Melodrama would have been calling the police," Layla said. "This is restraint." I looked at my daughter, and the ache in my chest was tidy and precise, like a suture placed well. "You may want to talk to someone who is not your husband," I said. "A lawyer who will tell you what words like fiduciary duty and undue influence mean." Mara swallowed. "Mom," she said, I was just trying to keep you safe." "Then you should have started by keeping me inside the house," I said. "Merry Christmas, Mara." I turned to my granddaughter on the stairs and forced a smile that did not wobble. "I love you," I said. "There's a silver locket on the tree with your name on the back. It has a secret compartment. You'll find a note inside. Read it when you're alone." The car outside was warm and smelled faintly of cloves. Anita took my hand in both of hers. "You did beautifully," she said. "I did what had to be done," I said. I wish doing and beautiful were the same thing. At home, Anita stayed until the kettle whistled and Layla called to say the filing had posted. "You'll have 3 quiet days," Layla said. "Then it will be loud." "I can stand loud," I said. "I have played carols with children." The loud arrived on schedule. The day after Christmas, Kent called twice and left messages I forwarded to Layla without listening to the middle parts. Mara texted, "Can we talk?" I asked if her lawyer was present. She did not reply. "Neighbors hear more than you think." The woman 2 doors down wrote a note on lined paper and folded it like a schoolgirl. Not my business, it began, which is what people write when they have decided to make it theirs. But I saw Kent moving boxes from your garage last month. I thought it was odd at the time. Layla built a neat stack, camera footage, bank alerts, the neighbor's note, the cognitive evaluation cross-referenced with the doctor's connection to Kent's boss on public records, the text messages in which Mara used words like streamline and permanently. At the hearing, Kent wore a suit he didn't own last year and a smile that did not reach his eyes. Mara sat beside him, pale, with a tissue she did not use. The judge read the file with the unflinching patience of someone who has sat through 100 families calling harm by its polite names. He asked me 2 questions. Do you wish to retain control of your finances, Mrs. Hart? And do you feel safe? Yes, I said to the first. Safer now? I said to the second. I did not look at Mara when I said it because I do not aim where I am not willing to go. Layla spoke in paragraphs that felt like walls placed between me and the people who had mistaken me for furniture. She asked for a 1-year protective order with review at 6 months. She asked for mandated financial counseling for Kent as an alternative to charges. She asked for an independent cognitive evaluation by one of the physicians named in my documents. She asked for return of property listed in an attached exhibit, including the hummingbird brooch. Kent's lawyer tried words like misunderstanding and family dynamic. The judge interrupted him once. The statute cites exploitation, he said. The evidence is specific. The order came down with a weight that felt like the good kind of exhaustion. 1 year. Review at 6 months. No access to my accounts. No entry to my house. Return of property within 10 days. An appointment set for an independent evaluation with Dr. Shaw to be conducted in January. Outside the courtroom, Mara approached me alone. The hall smelled like lemon cleaner and worry. Mom, she said, this isn't you. It is, I said softly. It became me when you turned the lock. I didn't? She began, then closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked like a woman who had run and finally stopped. He said, I know what he said, I said. I also know what you said. Peace. Less us. Those are words people use when they are sweeping. Her face crumpled and then rearranged itself into control. What happens now? Now we live with what we've done, I said, and we see if we can live with each other. She nodded because sometimes the only lever you can find is the one that keeps the door from slamming again. January drew lines on the calendar like stitches. I went to Dr. Shaw's office and completed a battery of tests that felt like gymnastics for a mind that still likes to garden. He asked me to read a paragraph and repeat it. I did. And then I told him the paragraph in my own words because I dislike waste. People will try to use this evaluation to prove a point, he said when we were finished. That is not what it is for. What is it for? I asked. To see you, he said simply. His report contradicted the first. Within normal range for age, no evidence of impairment beyond ordinary lapses. He recommended no intervention. He suggested delicately, boundaries. I sent a copy to Mara. She did not respond for 2 days. On the 3rd day, she sent a single sentence. Would you like to have lunch? Just us? We met at a place that serves soup in bowls large enough to wash a sweater. We did not order wine. We did not talk about Christmas at first. We spoke about the granddaughter's recital, about the school fundraiser that always ends with parents eating too many brownies. When we ran out of neutral weather, Mara set down her spoon. I'm not going to defend him, she said. He's been under pressure, and I let that pressure leak into our home in the ugliest way. I am sorry. I know pressure, I said. I once sewed curtains for a whole kindergarten over a weekend because the school decided fabric would make the room calmer. It did not, but we tried. She smiled despite herself, and then the smile faded. I don't know how to fix this. Most things aren't fixed, I said. They're mended. You can see the seams if you look. That's how you know it's strong. Will you ever let me help you again? She asked. Yes, I said, but not like that. We created a schedule. Mara could visit on Wednesdays and Sundays. announced with the doorbell rung, even if she used her key. Kent could not come. My granddaughter could stay the night once a month. I would consider a house cleaner twice a month of my choosing. I would send a list of things I was proud to still do myself. You would be surprised how long such a list can be. The brooch arrived by courier wrapped in tissue like a fragile truth. There were other items in the envelope: the checkbook I had stopped letting them balance, a set of spare keys, a note from Kent that did not say sorry. It said, "Per your request." Layla raised an eyebrow. "That tone is useful," she said. "Keep it." In February, Mara showed up with a box of files and a stiff set to her jaw. "I want to show you something," she said. "No, Kent." Inside the box were credit card statements and an email printout from Kent to a man I did not know with the subject line, "Bridge loan." The amounts made my scalp tighten. So that was the pressure. A business I'd been told was thriving, braced with other people's money. My accounts had been a solution, not the problem. "I didn't know about all of it," she said. "That is not an excuse." "It is a direction," I said. "Where are you going to go with it?" "I've spoken to a lawyer," she said, almost inaudible. "I'm drawing a line he cannot cross, and I'm moving it if he tries." "Good," I said. "Let me know where the line is so I do not step on it by accident." The school fundraiser came and went. I baked 2 sheet cakes and labeled one "Contains nuts" with letters the size of honesty. My granddaughter spent a Saturday night with me, and we made a fort out of quilts and talked in whispers about nothing important. She found the locket note. I had written that love is not the same as permission and that she is allowed to ask questions even when grown-ups frown. Spring softened the edges of everything except the order, which held firm. Kent found another job after a month that must have felt like a year. The bank unfroze his venture account with conditions. He did not contact me. He sent one email through his lawyer asking if I intended to pursue charges. Layla answered for me. "If there is no further contact and no further attempts, Mrs. Hart will let the civil remedies stand." In May, Anita planted geraniums along my front walk. "Red is for persistence," she said. "And because it annoys your neighbor," with the pink azaleas. On a Sunday in June, Mara arrived with laundry and no explanation. She folded my towels because her hands needed a task. "We are separating," she said to the linen closet. "I want you to hear it from me." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it in the way you mean it when the floor plan changes and you know there will be stubbed toes before there is a new map. "It isn't because of you," she said quickly, as if that would soothe me. "But Christmas was the pivot. Once you see the shape of something, you can't make it simpler by squinting." We moved through the summer like people learning a new dance. Sometimes we stepped on each other, sometimes we stopped and started the music over. By August, we could circle the kitchen without apology. The review hearing came in September. The judge asked if the order should continue. Layla looked at me. I looked at Mara. "It can expire," I said, with an understanding. "Which is?" the judge asked. "That if anything like this happens again," I said, "we use louder tools." "Understood," the judge said, and made a note that felt like a period with a safety pin through it. On the way out, Kent stood at the far end of the hall talking to his lawyer, pretending not to see us. His face had the peeled look of a man who has taken up jogging because it is easier than sitting with himself. He did not approach. That was good judgment, if not growth. At Thanksgiving, I hosted. I set the table with the wedding china Harold and I bought, with checks that bounced once and were covered before the store called. Mara carved the turkey without ceremony. My granddaughter placed the napkins and whispered, "We're inside." We passed bowls and pies and did not tell stories that demanded forgiveness. We did not require anyone to perform gratitude. Later, when the house was quiet and the dishwasher hummed like a contented animal, I went to the hall camera and took it down. I held it in my hands for a moment and then placed it in the drawer with the extra light bulbs. People ask me how to forgive. I tell them, forgiveness is not a gate you walk through. It is a path you make at your own pace so you can reach your own door. Some days I sit on the step and tie my shoes. Some days I walk farther than I thought I could. On Christmas Eve, a year later, I baked the rolls my granddaughter loves and wrapped a silver brooch in tissue for her. A hummingbird, a twin of mine, found in a small shop where the owner had kind eyes. I arrived at Mara's house with a bag full of warm things and an empty pocket. I stood on the porch and waited. The door opened before I could knock. My granddaughter barreled into me, all elbows and joy. Behind her, Mara stood with the expression of a woman who has learned the weight of words. She stepped aside and held the door. "Come in, Mom," she said. "You'll be more comfortable here." I stepped into the light. The laughter inside didn't roll against the door that year. It met me where I stood. And for the first time since the night I sat between the lawnmower and the box labeled taxes, I let myself breathe the warm air as if I were allowed, because I was. There is no bow on this story, no last-minute miracle. There is a ledger. What was taken, what was returned, what we chose, what we didn't. There is the quiet knowledge that I am not a problem to manage. I am a person who learned to say no and yes in the same sentence and mean both. There is the memory of a garage, cold and close, and the knowledge that I have hands that know how to open doors. If you are listening and the cold is in your feet, hear me. Write the dates in red ink. Learn the names of your papers. Put your love somewhere strong enough to hold it. And when someone tells you you'll be more comfortable in the dark, remember that you know where the lights are. The beginning was a door closing. The rest was me opening mine.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.